Hey guys, it's Nihongo Johnny. Minasan konnichiwa, Nihongo Johnny desu. A few days ago, I asked you guys on Twitter what you wanted to hear, and most of you responded that you wanted to hear my own personal experiences in Japan. So today, I thought I'd talk about the scariest experience I've had till this very day. I haven't really talked about this with many people. I don't think I've talked about this with anyone actually. So it's a little bit hard for me to bring a lot of this up because I just kind of buried it as time went on. I don't even know where to start. I guess let me start with my background. So, between the years 2014 and 2016, I lived in a place called Miyazaki, and it was in the southern part of Japan. Miyazaki is a very rural part of Japan. I'd have to say it's probably one of the most countryside places you could go to. There's not much to do in terms of like going out and going shopping or going to the movies. You can do those things, but it's not quite as big as other parts of Japan. I'd say there's a lot of stuff to do involving nature and maybe going to old shrines and temples, stuff like that. So it's very similar to the way Japan was in the past compared to the very westernized parts of Japan like Tokyo today. And specifically in Miyazaki, I lived in a city called Nobeoka, which is in the northern part and kind of inwards in Miyazaki. And it's very, very beautiful there. Not many people, even in Japan, know about this area. But it has so many beautiful treasures that I really wish more people could kind of go and see. It has places like Takachiho that I had the honor to take a rowboat through once in my life. And I know I keep mentioning shrines and temples, but I really love that kind of stuff. And it has such beautiful shrines that were there for years and years and years that if I could find my old pictures, I'll definitely post them in this video. Now, the area I lived in Nobeoka was very old. I don't think it's been updated in probably 50 or 60 years. A lot of the buildings were kind of run down, they were all made of stone, kind of coming apart and cracking. And it was surrounded by a lot of greenery. So it kind of felt like you were in the middle of the woods almost. And it had this very primal energy to it that you really can't find anywhere else. So in this little section of town, you were kind of cut off from a lot of places. I think the nearest supermarket was maybe it was probably like a 30 to 40 minute walk. So there wasn't much around, which also made it a little bit creepy. And once again, I don't really have a script for this, so I'm kind of going in circles and kind of saying what comes to my head. So I'm sorry if it gets a little bit confusing or hard to follow. I remember that this neighborhood didn't have a lot of people actually living in it. There were a lot of vacancies in the buildings, or the buildings were shut down. I think even the building I live in is or was knocked down. But basically, my apartment was sort of like a square, and it was partitioned into, I think, 3 rooms. It was all divided by sliding doors. So you could leave all of these open and have this giant apartment, or you could make 2 rooms or 3 rooms. It was kind of very convenient in that way. It was originally meant for a family, but since not that many people lived there, I was able to get that apartment for myself for very cheap. I think I was only paying like the equivalent of $100 or $200 a month, which is very cheap. But anyways, I'll kind of give you a layout of how my house was. So if we're thinking of this square divided up, I have my room in the top right corner. I have my living room in the top left corner. And then there was this sort of like empty room that I kind of left as a guest room in the bottom left corner. And then in the middle of this, in sort of like an L shape, was a hallway and a kitchen. It was very small, but very efficient. Then I had a few closets in my bedroom and in the hallway that were also sliding doors. From the day I moved in, I was kind of weirded out by the closets. And I didn't really put much in them. Especially because they smelled kind of funny, and I didn't want that to get all over my clothes and personal items. But I'm trying to think back to when I actually moved into this apartment, and I remember it had this very strong energy to it. It was nothing like I felt before. It was similar to the energy outside, but it was even stronger in my apartment. It was very natural and very primal, but somehow dark at the same time. The first few nights I moved in there, I had a little bit of trouble sleeping. I kind of thought maybe it's just I missed home, I wasn't used to Japan, and it was my first time really living alone with no one around me. So I brushed it off. At night, I'd constantly look out into the hallway, and I felt something was out there. And once again, I was all alone for the most part. So I kind of told myself that, oh, I'm just kind of creeping myself out. It's really nothing, nothing's there. There was always this scratching coming from the closet above my bed. And it would only happen for a few minutes at a time, and then kind of desist. I thought there was an animal in there that was trying to get out, but every time I looked, there was nothing. And there was no holes on the inside for anything to get in or out. Eventually, I called my landlord, and I had him come over probably on a weekly basis, saying, hey, there's this scratching coming from inside the closet. I'm worried about an animal problem, or maybe there's something in there. And he kindly kept checking, but there was nothing there. About 3 or 4 months into living there, I started to notice as I was sleeping, there was this shadow walking back and forth through the kitchen. I would tell myself over and over that it's just the lights from maybe a car going by, even though not many cars actually drove by this area. I'd kind of cover my head and try to go back to sleep because there wasn't anything I could really do. I couldn't really leave. There was nowhere I could go, especially at this time of night. And I didn't really want to be walking around. I just wanted to sleep. Then every day I would go to work, and I would notice that either I'd have all the doors in the apartment closed, when I'd come back home they were half open. Or if I'd leave them open, they'd be closed. It was never the same. We did frequently get earthquakes in Miyazaki. I'd say we'd get them every couple months, but it wasn't on a daily basis. So I don't think that it could honestly be earthquakes that caused these doors to open and close. As time went on, that shadow that went back and forth between my room ended up changing shape. It became more and more like a person walking back and forth. One day I went onto my porch and I noticed my emergency exit door was open. And I'm almost 100% sure there's no way to open this emergency exit door from the bottom. You have to be in the apartment, on the porch, to turn the lever and pull it up. So that was one more thing that was kind of moving on its own that really creeped me out. Now let's put that story on hold a minute, because we will come back to it at the end, and it will be important for the sort of end of this story. There was also this shrine by my house, and it was within walking distance. I think it was about a 4 or 5 minute walk, not even. It was really just down the street. Probably a 2-minute walk, to be honest. And I'd frequently walk by this. It was beautiful. It was very small. It was very old. It had one stone gate on the outside, and you kind of had to walk down this path to get to another stone gate. And once you made it through that second stone gate, there was a giant, beautiful opening. It was like a little alcove of trees and greenery. And it had these 2 little lion statues. I think one was broken a bit. And there was a wooden shrine, a very small wooden shrine. And I'd go to this once in a while. It wasn't very creepy. But one day I did go with my boyfriend, and we were riding our bikes, so we left our bikes on the side right next to the first gate. And as we were walking in, we passed the first gate on our way to the second one. This really strong wind blew and knocked our bikes down. It wasn't a windy day. This was the first time we really felt that wind. So we kept on walking in. We were only going to be there for a couple minutes, so we figured we didn't need to pick up the bikes. We'll just be in and out. So we weren't too worried. And I remember, usually there's not too many bugs in there, but it is the foresty area. So it's not surprising there were bugs. But there were so many spider webs that day. We kind of kept brushing ourselves off. And when we made it to the shrine, we kind of felt like there was this energy kind of pushing back on us, like not letting us near the shrine. And I started to say, hey, let's go back. And it was a cloudy day, and we started hearing the patter of rain coming down. This quickly developed into a storm within about a minute, so we ran back to our bikes. We wanted to get back home as quick as possible. At this point, it developed into a really bad thunderstorm. So I went back to my apartment and kind of waited it out. And on our way back to my apartment, which wasn't far at all, the creepiest thing happened. We noticed that this rainstorm didn't even reach my apartment by the time we got back. It seemed to be just around the shrine. I don't know if it was farther down on the other side of town as well. It seemed to be only near the shrine, which was really, really freaky. There was clouds everywhere, but the rainstorm was only happening near the shrine. I really don't know if this shrine was connected to anything going on in my house because it was so close, or if this and like the haunting that was going on in my house were two separate events. I'm really not sure. If you guys think you know what was going on, please definitely let me know. So anyways, this weird kind of stuff kept going on and on for months, and this is nearing my second year into living in Japan. And I think at this point, I've been through maybe 5 or 6 earthquakes, maybe 2 or 3 really big ones. I was never really that bothered by them. I got used to them very quickly. But there was the giant Kumamoto地震, or the Kumamoto Earthquake, which was around the time of my birthday. I can't remember if it was before or after. I'll have to look up the exact date. But this earthquake was one of the biggest ones to ever hit our area in years. I've never felt anything like this before. The night this happened, I think my boyfriend was out to dinner with his coworkers, and I was all alone. I was sitting on the couch watching Netflix. I remember exactly. I was watching Salem. And I was doing this for a couple hours. I was binge watching. Give me a break. I know you do it too. Don't judge. So I was binge watching this show when I noticed the lights were flickering a little bit. And I had this really, really, really weird feeling. Within seconds, my phone alarm started to go off. And in Japan, they have an early alert earthquake system that automatically makes your phone go off, and it tells you to like hide and run for cover. And it tells you that strong quakes are coming, so kind of hide under your desk or hide in a safe area and wait for the earthquake to finish. I'll try to see if I can get a clip of that as well, and I'll let you guys hear for yourself what it sounds like.
地震です。
So, I was watching this show, and that alarm started going off. And I was kind of in shock, but I was able to kind of be like, okay, there's an earthquake coming, I need to get under the desk. So I stand up and everything starts shaking violently. I noticed my desk was moving, it was kind of hard to make it to the table. My furniture was kind of tipping back and forth, things were flying off the shelves, and I just kind of duck and hid. This lasted for a really long time. I think it was about a minute to a minute and a half, which is really, really long for an earthquake. I honestly, at this point, thought I was going to die. The strange thing about this was, I was so nervous, and then I thought, oh, I'm gonna die. And as soon as I thought that, I kind of was at peace, and I wasn't scared anymore, I was just kind of waiting, and my mind was just at peace, and I was kind of okay with this. I accepted it, which is a reaction that I didn't think I'd ever have. But the shaking did come to a stop, and I was safe. I wasn't hurt at all. I think I hurt my knee a little bit, and I was bleeding a little bit, but it was nothing serious. So at this point, I called my boyfriend, and I asked, are you okay? And he said, yeah, that was crazy. Like, the wine glasses were falling off the shelves at the restaurant and everyone was under the table. I don't think many people got hurt in this quake, even though it was so big. So I kind of calmed myself down, went back to watching my show, trying to like bring down my adrenaline. I tried to just let my body settle down. And then another aftershock happened. And this wasn't even half as strong as the first quake. This is the one I actually got on camera that I'll share with you guys right now. And as you can see, it was pretty scary, but it wasn't as scary as the first quake. And after this, I thought it was all over. But I think the following night, or the night after that, at 3 in the morning, an even bigger earthquake than the first one happened. We even had a little bit of a tsunami warning, but not much came out of it. This is where things got really, really creepy. After this big earthquake, I felt there was something behind me. And at this point, my adrenaline was gone. I was pretty calm, but I felt something just staring at me. So I turned my head around very slowly, and I noticed this black figure, maybe about 7 or 8 feet. So it's still really creepy to think about. He was this black figure, 7 or 8 feet, with this top hat on. And he was blacker than black. It was really, really dark in the room, but he was even darker. And it just had this hatred and dark red energy pouring from it. And I wish I could kind of show you guys how it felt. I don't want you to feel it, but it's so creepy, and it's just something, I don't know, I can't get over. He stood there for maybe about 2 minutes. I couldn't really move. I wasn't paralyzed, I just didn't want to move. I wanted to pretend that I didn't see him. And occasionally, through these 2 minutes, I'd hear him walk back and forth throughout the kitchen. He never drew closer, but he was moving sideways. And I think moments after that, he kind of dissipated into this mist and went away. I didn't feel him again that whole night, but I kept feeling really anxious and always checking behind me and making sure he wasn't there. Even though I didn't feel the presence, I was just scared it would come back. I think that was the end of that figure showing up, but I did constantly feel a different kind of presence in my closet for the rest of my time in Japan. I do know that the person who lived in the apartment after me moved out within a couple days. I don't know if it was because of those same experiences, or maybe he just didn't like the apartment, because it was very old. But I never wanted to ask. I never sort of wanted to put that energy out there and make anyone even more uncomfortable than they had to be. But when I was talking to some of my friends in Japan, they did knock down that building, or they were planning to knock it down. I talked to these friends, I think, maybe a few months, maybe 8 months ago. So I don't know what the current status is. I'll have to look into it. But there was plans to knock this place down, and I don't know exactly why. Maybe the earthquake damaged it somehow. I can only assume. But yeah, in the end, I moved back to America. I stopped having these experiences. This was only in the area I was in Japan, no other area. It didn't follow me around Japan. It didn't follow me around town. It was just in that section of town. And I'm not even gonna disclose what section of town it was, because I really don't want people going there. I don't want people feeding into it. Thank you guys so much for listening to my first kind of straight up talk to you guys, where I'm not reading off a script. I'm just kind of talking from my heart, reciting memories, and it really means so much if you've made it to this point in the video. Once again, thank you so much, and if you liked this video, definitely hit a thumbs up and subscribe. It would really mean a lot to me. I'm trying to hit my first 150 subscribers by October, when I have a big surprise for you guys, and I really hope you enjoyed today's video. Thank you so much for watching. See you guys next time.